Abigail was the wife of Nabal in the Bible, and Nabal, the Bible actually describes him as a fool. You know, by the time the Bible is calling you a fool, hey, you must be very far gone on that spectrum. So, but Abigail, she had a very difficult husband for to be in a marriage with, but that never changed who she was as a woman. She maintained her character, she maintained her wisdom, and she was able to save their entire household because of that. The story is, King David was in the neighborhood, and he had previously done a favor for Nabal, and so he was asking Nabal for food. They were having a feast, but Nabal said, no, mi hata hao ni akina nani. I don't know these people, and that's the king. And so David was coming to finish all the males in that household. But Abigail, through God and through owning her femininity, she was able to go and appeal to King David, and the King David's wrath was abated. And what happened? God dealt with the man. God dealt with Nabal akauawa. 10 days later he died, and immediately when David heard that guy has died, he proposed to Abigail to become his wife.
It's an amazing topic to talk about. So just touching on that and just getting to know, our feminine energy. So now, how do we know that, you're in your good feminine energy as a Christian woman? Because what I believe is there's nothing like toxic femininity, yeah? So now, how do we now embrace the femininity as a Christian woman? Yes. In the context of the Bible, how are we able to embrace that?
Yeah, I think again, it's all about perspective. What do you think about yourself as a woman? Because I've actually met people who said, I wish I was born, a man, and you see that's a challenge because they're struggling with owning their identity, and that's a whole other conversation because currently we're living in some very strange times where people think that they have the option of even changing their gender. I think the first step of having biblical femininity is first of all accepting who God made you as a woman, because being a woman is beautiful. I mean, we are beautiful. God took his time. He had nothing but time on his hands when he made a woman, and so I think it's something that should be celebrated. But also, I think, especially in the African context, we have seen a lot of patriarchal, themes going around. We have a patriarchal society, and so women are very much, shunned, or they're really not very celebrated as much as men, and so that kind of makes women desire to be masculine and to take up the masculine space. But I think just going back to the scripture, what do the women in the Bible look like? I'll give you a good example of Abigail. Abigail was the wife of Nabal in the Bible, and Nabal, the Bible actually describes him as a fool. By the time the Bible is calling you a fool, hey, you must be very far gone on that spectrum. So, but Abigail, she had a very difficult husband for to be in a marriage with, but that never changed who she was as a woman. She maintained her character, she maintained her wisdom, and she was able to save their entire household because of that. The story is, King David was in the neighborhood, and he had previously done a favor for Nabal, and so he was asking Nabal for food. They were having a feast, but Nabal said, no, mi hata hao ni akina nani. I don't know these people, and that's the king. And so David was coming to finish all the males in that household. But Abigail, through God and through owning her femininity, she was able to go and appeal to King David, and the King David's wrath was abated. And what happened? God dealt with the man. God dealt with Nabal akauawa. 10 days later he died, and immediately when David heard that guy has died, he proposed to Abigail to become his wife. And so there's really strength in just owning who you are. Be self-aware and be secure. Be secure in your identity as a woman, where God has placed you, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in church, whether it's in your social circles. Just own yourself. Own yourself as a woman and celebrate yourself for all that you can do. Yeah.
Okay. For me, it's interesting because I work in the women empowerment space. I'm a feminist, so this question is, But in my many years of working with girls and young women, there's always that fight between feminism, masculinity, and sometimes women are labeled to be too helpless, men are labeled to be too rough, and I think all these are constructed within our societies and where we come from, like you've said. And so for me, what that looks like for a woman, especially a woman who's in Christ, is, like you said, start by learning who you are, number one. I feel like sometimes we really move as a crowd and we forget what works for you, So I would think the first thing, really want to know who you are. And I'm always going to insist, never be afraid to learn. If today I woke up and I felt like maybe wearing these dresses that's not what I'm feeling. Be okay with changing and developing, and be okay with changing and developing according to the Bible. If yesterday I was maybe not nice as Abigail, if I was going to say, yes, our husband, we're not going to give you food, I would be ganging up with my husband. But today I've learned and I'm going to do better. So be very open to learning on your femininity. And I think there's power in feminism, there's soft power in women, there's the way women handle things that maybe sometimes men do. Men are just like, this is a glass, this is juice, but a woman will talk about this glass is on top they make things a bit more easy and they make life more interesting. So I think, again, it's not a competition between the two sexes. And may women never use our femininity to lower ourselves down, and may we not also allow it to be used to push ourselves down. Instead, let's use it to rise up in places, sometimes in conflict where things are so hot, but a woman can walk in and, even in siblings, how you and your siblings can be fighting, and your mother will come in with her soft touch, and all of you would just, surrender, So let's use it as a power, as opposed as it being a tool to fight women down or to fight men, So that's what I think.
Yeah.
I could go on and on. This is my
it's your topic. It's your topic.
Your strength,
I think for me, my definition of femininity, for those who know me, they know that I really love the book of Genesis. Because if you want to understand the principles of something, you just go to where it was first mentioned. So trying to define what being a woman is or what femininity is for me, I will really go back to where woman is first mentioned. That's in the first books of Genesis. I think the woman is first introduced as a helper, as someone who's coming first of all to fill in because Adam was lonely, coming in to fill that, bringing in warmth and all that. So I think from the book of Genesis, and through the Bible, through the different women characters in the Bible, we see the different characteristics of women that we should embrace. So one of them being helpers. They're very influential in the different spaces that they have been put in. They change things, in a soft way, so we're not very aggressive, but we have a way of convincing men. Adam ate the apple because of our power. We changed the whole dynamics of everything. So we have that power of influence in our own way, which is quite different from how men do. I think we're also very nurturing, and even that's how we've been built, even physically. Like we have the and we also have the uterus to carry and to nurture something until it's and we've been given that ability to also be fruitful. So I think we are very unique. We bring in something totally different that the men have not been equipped to. So we've been given the resources, as I mentioned, through maybe our personality, physically, to be able to accomplish what our feminism should achieve. So for me, feminism, or rather femininity, is not what we've been told. It's not a personality. We've not been told that girls should love pink. So if you don't love pink, you're like, am I really? Yesterday I was watching another reel on Instagram by one of the influencers saying that if your woman speaks in a voice past this, like if they have a deeper voice, question. Really? Yeah, so there are so many things that we've been taught, but what's the genesis of what you understand your femininity to be. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, that's actually very interesting. And this, you would look at femininity in terms of also, now there's times you go through stuff, yeah, and most of the times if your identity is really not built on Christ, then the waves of life really will just move with you. So you find sometimes someone is really in their feminine energy, that nice soft feminine energy, and then something hits and then you're just there, you are really just trying to figure things out. So by the time now you're even realizing, you're like, oh, is my feminine energy wounded, and there's something like a wounded feminine energy because of the things that we go through. But again, as you've said, it's also just going back to the Bible and picking out the characters. And one of the characters that actually we just got to learn about recently, I think during the last women ministry in our group, was Zipporah. Honestly, we didn't know Zipporah was Moses' elder wife. So yes, we were shocked, to be honest. But then when you read that story, it's a story of strength. Like how women will come out and be like, to be a woman, I don't need to show that strength and everything and all that. So, but you see that when we read the story of Zipporah, you're able to realize that there was a lot of strength and courage in what she was able to do. So I think it is just being able to, as Tessia said, just embrace the different parts of what the Bible defines about femininity. Yes, and again, it's not. I'm a little bit into that space of yours, but really not that active. But the thing is, I am not. She is. So. And you find most of the time the problem people have is when people hear feminism, what they think about is you are against the men. You understand? And there's something about feminism that is really interesting, and that is that you're not going to suppress a man for you to rise. You understand? We are both fighting for almost the same things, though now maybe the girl child has to fight more. But the idea is not to really suppress one other agenda for you to rise, because that is really not. It's not activism, yeah? And just now, this brings me now to a question of how then as women, like Karen and maybe Stacey, I don't know if you're in that space as well. To just be able to, as a Christian, now you are in this feminism space, and chances are you meet every type of feminist in that space. So now, as a Christian woman, what are some of these values you're going to? So when there's a match or there's something happening, the voice, how can you just stand up as a child of God in that space to illuminate God's light in whatever that's happening? So now, as a Christian who's a feminist, what are some of the things that that maybe that can be done, or just to help equip them to handle the spaces that they're in?
I think number one, I'm accountable to God. That's the first and most important thing, Beyond all the work that I do, when all is said and done, I'm accountable to God. So in every space that I go, I always want to speak truth, to speak kindness, and to also understand, Sometimes we're very quick to label these feminists, but we don't know their journeys,
True.
No one has spoken to them. Maybe some of them haven't encountered, such a space where we're able to talk. Some of them have come from communities where they're really hurt, and their heart is true. We can't come as a church and cover it up and say now, So I think one of the things I'm very keen on is listening to different stories, and just hearing, what are you saying? Is it coming from a good place? How can we work together to ensure that I'm not, one thing that I think sometimes church we forget. And there's a Bible verse I was reading. I think Jesus was saying, if someone is healed, do they need a doctor? No. So sometimes as church we want we want people who are perfect, but sometimes we need to reach out to those people maybe who we feel are really wounded, are really angry, are really,
actually,
that is our role in church. So for me as a child of God who's learning, number one, I'm learning to really understand where people are coming from, not to impose my ideas to them, invite them to spaces, where they can be able to speak to people like you, leaders in church, because maybe they might speak to me and I'll tell them, let's go, So it's really important to know when to step back and let someone else to guide in this process. So I'm very keen to speak truth, to speak with, when God asks me, Karen, how did you do that? I'm able to be accountable, you know. And again, for the fourth time, I'll say it's always a learning process. It's a learning process. If today maybe I was advocating against something and I shut down men and I spoke badly about men, I go back and say, is this how God created me to be? Is this how I'm representing God? You know, so I think it's always a learning process, but let's never be quick to point fingers. Instead, let's open our churches to people who we think are very hard. Let's open the church, and we all want to win. You know,
that's very true. That's actually very true.
I agree with that actually. And there's something you said about not true feminism does not bash the opposite gender in order to advance itself. And I agree, because that's again the beauty of femininity, is just being able to nurture a space where there can be harmony, where there can be partnership, is literally just be responsible for your own own self as a woman. You don't need to be pointing fingers saying, oh, he didn't do, oh, the men are these. You know, you don't know all the men in the world.
How many men have you been
How
with?
many do you even know, apart from your brother, your uncle, and maybe your 4 exes? You know, you don't really. That's as far as it goes. So it's really unfair for a woman to begin to call and label all the men race. I don't know if that's good English, but to label them as one particular thing. And I think that's the tool of the enemy. The enemy is against families. So the first thing he'll do is to begin to cause you to fight each other, so that you'll never know that he's the real enemy behind the scene. You know, he wears a mask, so he'll cause the women to fight the men, he'll cause the men to fight the women. Like when recently we saw rising cases of femicide, you know. That's a classic tool of the enemy, because he wants the men to kill the women, so that the women can also say, no, you know, don't kill us, we're also human. And so in the midst of that chaos, we will miss the true enemy, who is the devil, you know, Satan. And he has been there since Garden of Eden to this day. He still has the same strategy. So it's up to us to hold hands, up to women and men to create even spaces where we can, safe spaces where we can talk about the issues and just discuss, okay, so what's the idea that men have about women? What's the idea that women have about men? And then how do we reconcile these differences? Because at the end of the day, we need each other.
Absolutely.
We need each other. Yeah, but again, it boils down to personal responsibility. We have to be able to own our part in the game. Like, take responsibility for your own actions, take responsibility for your own choices and your decisions that contributed to the problem, and be able to be open to accountability for the same. Yeah.
So I think you asked whether I'm in the space advocating for feminism. I may not necessarily be in the forefront, like the way Karen is, holding placards and all that. I think with different women use different truths. For me, the way I take it is just being who you know you are. Yeah, I think having that identity of so you're not getting your identity from what people say you can do. So you just be who you. If Christ has told you that you can do all things through Christ, go out there and shine in the career space, do everything, be excellent, and then through that you're proving that women can also excel in this different space. So for me, just being what I know I am, it proves a point, or it communicates a message in itself. So not necessarily respect women and all that. Yeah, but I think that for me it's just being.
Yeah, I believe we all have a part to play. Everyone has a different part to play in that.
You know, I always wonder, pressure, you know, but pressure wachia kuka. Just, you know, don't listen, because people will always have something to say. When I was in primary school, there's this book that I used to use for English. It's called Water Fright. And there used to be a story in Water Fright about a man who had a son and a donkey. And they were going to the market. So they are going to the market, and then sasa all of them are walking, the donkey, the son, and the father. Then they meet a group of people, and they start telling them, "Ai, we mzee, nini mbaya na wewe? Your son should be riding the donkey. How can you let a young man just get tired na kuna punda?" So the son gets on top of the donkey. They go a few steps, then they meet a different group, and they're telling them, "Ai, hapana, we kijana una heshima. How can your father walk?" and you're on the donkey, and so on and so. By the time they were reaching the market, both the father and the son were carrying the donkey.
Because of opinions.
Because of people's opinions. So when you focus on what people are saying or what they're not saying, it means that you've given them power to control the narrative of your life. You need to take ownership of your own life.